Tip 17V, cramming of wind turbines. Good afternoon, it's the 4th of January 2020, and normally this is one of the quietest places on my farm, but from the last month we have a wind turbine going just here, so you have that swish, swish, swish. I don't know whether you can hear it. I'll just stop talking for a minute so you can hear. It's a swish, swish, swish. Now there's 5 of them on down the valley here, but that's not the reason I'm doing this video. In the planning stage, one of the things I was lost for was information, and a lot of groups have set up to give information, and we learn things all the time. And we were desperately trying to find grounds to take judicial reviews and beat the planning permission before the deadline of March this year. I failed anyway in that, more or less, although made a valiant effort. But it shows you just how you can slip up and what mistakes you can make. But one of the things I discovered recently is that these are Akane E92 turbines, and these turbines are sold obviously by Akane in Germany, and they provide a user's manual with them, and it's online and you can get it to buy and all that. So they give certain recommendations. Now, just before I go into them, if you have an area of ground, let's say 100 acres, the amount of electricity you can extract from the wind on any day is the same, no matter how many turbines you put up. But if you put up too many, it reduces because it's too much. Now, this is the very same as if you had a plot of ground, I would say an acre of land, and you set potatoes on it at the recommended distance, and you got 20 tons to the acre, and then you come along and you set double the amount of seed. The potatoes will be smaller. You won't get an increased tonnage, and you won't get as good a potatoes. They'll be smaller. So, and you'll have increased spraying costs and everything else. So there's an optimum amount of seed. It's the same with oats, barley, or anything else. If you could get more output out of grain out of a plot of land, the people during the famine could have just sowed more seed and got more corn to help them through. So you can't get any more energy out of a plot of ground. You can't get any more vegetables or fruit out of a plot of ground, and you can't get any more trees out of a plot of ground simply by planting more. That doesn't work, and it doesn't work with wind either. Now, one little thing about wind farms, if you take smaller turbines, right, supposing that's the amount, the optimum amount that a plot of land will take, what happens if you make them bigger? Now, the exception to this rule is cities like New York and Hong Kong. Some cities build upwards, and they overcome the problem of ground space with going up, and so you have all these skyscrapers. But the problem is you can do that with wind as well, so I'm showing it to you here now. Well, with wind, sorry, I'm just trying to get it right. With wind, you can make a bigger turbine, but the problem is, as you make this bigger, so the blade here is wider as well. So the distance between the two blades here, when they're horizontal, is closer. So if you look on this one, you have, we'll say there, about, can you see that there? It's a bit hard to see it. It's very difficult for me now to do this. So yeah, so you see the distance there between two small ones. We now see that when you have two larger ones, the distance is less. So you're limited. Wind is not in the same category as a city. Surely if you get up higher you get a bit more wind, then you have an imbalance between the top and the bottom, but you also have this problem that you need to space them out more. So how much? According to Akane's own manual, they should be 7 to 8 rotor diameters apart, and these rotors are 92 meters. Now, the Engineers Associations recommend 15 rotor diameters, but the Akane, who's selling them, recommends a minimum of 7 to 8. And just for the sake of argument and for legal reasons, we'll say that that's what's needed. Now, we all know that they'll make that distance as short as they can so they can sell more turbines. But take that as it is. 7 to 8 rotor diameters, 72 meters rotor, gives you 644 meters between the turbines. Have you got that? Now, just to give it to you again, 7 to 8 rotor diameters, 92 meters across, gives you 644 meters between each turbine. Now remember, if you have 5 turbines, you only have 4 spaces. Watch. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have 5. By the same token, if you have 10 turbines, you only have 9 spaces, because the first one is not it's getting wind coming in over a big area, and there's no turbines in front of it. Hope you understand that. There's 4 spaces, okay? So if you multiply 644 by 4, you get 2576, or 2.5. Right, 2.5. Now just to get that again, 644 meters multiplied by 4 gives you 2.5 kilometers, or 2,576 meters. Right. Now, that would mean, in the case of this wind farm, the last wind turbine down there, instead of this one being here, it would be up at the crossroads, at the Kuiper crossroad in the town of Kingscourt, at the minimal. So they'd be spread out. There'd be one there, the next one would be there, there'd be 2 on this site, there'd be another one over there, there'd be another one in at, we'll say, close to where the Granada Ballroom is, and the next one would be in at the Dunnery House Hotel or the Kingscourt Livestock Mart, or anywhere around the centre of the street of Kingscourt. That would be where it is. Instead of that, it's all cramped on one, about 100 acres here. And now, so you can see now what has happened. Now, the point is, the site here is 971 from this turbine here, the one just here, and I'll probably show it to you before I finish, to the one down there, 971. But there's a slight bow. And using trigonometry, I can figure out that the distance is actually about 1,030 meters. Now, it's not quite right to use the bow shape, because you're talking about the amount of wind hitting them. So if you take a westerly wind, it's 971 is the area that they can take the power out of. But still, there's a slight bow, which means that they're slightly more distance apart. Okay? Now, so anyway, just to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, the developer, 1030 divided by 4 is 257. So these turbines are an average of 257 meters apart. And in these ones here, they look to be a lot less. I'd say they're about 200, maybe about 230. I mean, they're just beside me here. I'll give you a look at them now in a minute. Okay, so they're 257 meters apart, when they should at a minimal be 644. Right, 644. They should be at a minimum of 644. And if we take that 1030 divided by 457 is 0.44. So the developer only had 0.44, 44%. You can hear the noise now coming in. You hear that noise there. That's the wind whistling through it. And there's a motor running there now at the minute, changing the yaw. So anyway, the point about it is, they have only 44% of the land they would have needed to build this turbine. Allowing that it's a narrow farm. The farm is narrow. So if you owned a strip of land up there, and all the land was in narrow strips, this is what you'd need. You'd need the farmer to have that length of a strip. And that's unusual. Usually farms are fairly square. So anyway, there was only 0.44% the amount of electricity needed. Or, if you take it another way, they'd need 2.25, 2.25 times the land they actually had. Right? Now, I'll be showing you now in a minute, there's one of these stopped. Now, that means that this wind farm will produce a lot less electricity than if it were spaced properly. It's possible it will only produce maybe 44% of the proper output. And this was identified by engineer John Dooley, who I had on my channel for Gartnan, where only about 1/3 of its output was ever achieved. So this one here will achieve about 44, maybe sometimes depending on wind, 50%. So I'm just going to show you now, the rain is coming on. Oh yeah, I want to tell you why I'm telling you this just before I finish. Had I spotted that there was actually a manual in existence from the maker of these turbines, and had I known the make of the turbine, which I didn't, I would have been able to take a judicial review on the grounds that these are not sustainable, that the site is not able to hold these. And then the current guidelines, public consultation by the Department of Housing and Environment, there's public consultations invited, and we'll be getting that on it. The first thing they should do in any guidelines is make sure that they're correct distance apart. And if they make them be the correct distance apart, they won't be built at all, because they won't be viable. This here can never pay even its basic annual costs. So all this hassle, all the annoyance and everything is all for nothing. Moreover, even if the government accepts that wind farms are viable, they claim they are, they can't possibly believe that if they're only viable at the minute, and most of them are losing a lot of money, they're losing an average of 222 million a year, they can never pay their principal sum. But even if government believes that they work, they surely don't believe that they work at less than half their capacity. So this is an 11.5 megawatt wind farm, and in actual fact it'll only ever give about 4.5–5%. So that's not sustainable, and that would stand up, in my view, in a court. That would make good grounds under the EIA directive and the Planning and Development Act that it doesn't provide economic return, and therefore it's not viable. And had I noticed that, I would have succeeded in a judicial review, I believe, on this. It's certainly be well worth doing. Now we have the situation, this thing is going round here for over a month. There's no word of anyone buying it. I think that the penny has dropped with Irish Life and our pension funds. But it's very important, if you have a pension fund, to check it out, what they're doing. If they invest in this, you're talking now with this new revelation. I've said it'll take 92 years to repay this. It'll actually take about 220 years to ever get the capital cost back, and the lifetime of this is 25, and it already has a period of that elapsed because the planning was granted a long time ago, and therefore when they go to build it again, there'll be evidence of the noise and all that. They won't get it ever built again. So it's a complete disaster. This is Eddie O'Connor now owns this as Mainstream Renewable Power. So just bear that in mind, how we missed out on that, how it should be put in any consultation on the guidelines. We'll get it put in a few times, and also bear it in mind in relation to examining plans for wind farms for this, because there is a sitting duck for grounds, along with many others, for a judicial review. So I'll just show you now, hopefully now that's alright, I'll just show you now the wind farm, and there's one, that's number 5 actually, they're counted from the south. Now you see the distance there, only about 240 yards. The next two is about 250. The next one's about 270. And you can see one down there. We'll see now, we get up on the hill. It's hard to see it. There's one there. So there's another one there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's number 5 going round in the trees there. I'll try and push this in. You may just be able to see it going round there. That's number 5. That's to the north. Then we come round here to number 4, number 3, number 2 and number 1. And they should be 640. Really, at the very, very optimum. There's one. The next one should be where number 1 is, over there. Next one should be there. Don't know, can you see it there now going round? So that should be 1, and this should be all space, and this should be number 5. And it might be accepted that number 3 there, that you'd fit 3 on that if you had a proper west wind. Now the other thing is that the prevailing wind here, if you take from that turbine there to those 3, if you take those 3, that's the southwest wind. That's a line from Limerick to we'll say Carlingford Lough, roughly Limerick to Carlingford Lough, or maybe a little more north, maybe Limerick to halfway between Dundalk and Belfast. So there's 3 there in a row. So the second one is stopped and has been stopped. So when this one here takes the energy out of the wind and disturbs the wind flows on to 2 and 3, and it'll damage those, because the turbine blade actually, just sorry now here, just a bit awkward. The turbine blade, if you watch them, when there's wind, it bends it this way when it's generating, and that's in a steady wind. So the wind picks up and away. It will go off